Managing Windows updates on both servers and desktops can be a complicated task depending on your environment. So let's see how Microsoft help us to resolve the problem using Windows Server update services. Hello friends, this is Nick from NOB Solutions, and today I'm going to show you how you can install and configure Windows Server Update Services or WSUS in Windows Server 2016. Of course, you know Windows updates could be a pain in the behind sometimes, and a lot of administrators are struggling with having all of their systems, both servers, desktops, laptops, being up to date. So WSUS help in this region, in this department, where you can deploy a server from which you centralized server from which you can distribute updates in your environment, and then make reports and see what's the compliance in your environment to see how many updates have the latest update, how many servers have the latest updates, how many desktops, laptops, etc. And you will know what needs to be done using these reports in the end to force updates on these computers. Of course, as I mentioned, the WSUS server can be used as a centralized server, and depending on your environment and how many clients you have, how many offices around the world, you can have different deployments, different downstream servers that can replicate, for example, the updates from a centralized location, or you can manage the updates on every single office and push them into the offices themselves to update the respective office where the WSUS server is, thus making managing the whole environment and the whole Windows updates scenario quite easy for us administrators. So enough with the talk, let's start with pretty much installing the Windows Server Update Services role. And this is a server role in Windows Server 2016. So you can see I'm going to close the window and start from the beginning. You need to add roles and features. And here, select the server that you want to install the role on. And for me, I have my WSUS server, and I'm going to use my domain controller DC01. You can see it right here. And on DC01, I'm going to configure the group policy settings for my clients to detect the WSUS server and use the WSUS server for updates. So if I switch to the WSUS, I'm going to select this server and select the option to install Windows Server Update Services. Going to add all the features that are required, not going to add any additional features, and you can see that you have a brief summary of Windows things to note, so you can check them yourself. And you can see that you have three options: WID connectivity, WSUS services, and SQL Server connectivity. So the first option is if you plan to install the WSUS server on a single server, you have two options to store the database on. The first option is Windows internal database, and the other option is a SQL Server database. So if you want, you can store the database on a SQL server somewhere. If you want, you can store this database on the server where the actual WSUS is installed. So depending on the size of the updates you're downloading, because you will see that you have a big variety of updates, this database can become quite big. So what I suggest is, first, be sure that you reduce the updates that your WSUS is going to download. I'm going to show you how to do this. And second, be sure that this database is stored on a location that is separate from your operating system, because your operating system, your C drive, can run out of space quite easily. After describing what's the difference between the two databases, I'm going to leave the WSUS services and basically leave the default installation, click Next. And in the next window, you will see that it's asking me to provide the local path where the WSUS server will store its database. So, and files, of course. So I'm going to select a different path from my operating system partition, which is the C partition, and I'm going to specify E as my source, as my destination, more likely destination for the Windows Server update services to download updates and store the database files. And I'm going to click next. It's a small description of the IIS services that needs to be installed on this server, and I don't want to add anything else, so this is the default, this is the minimum that is required for the WSUS server to work. So I'm going to leave this and click next, and under confirmation you can see what is going to be installed on this server, so I can click install and wait for the wizard to complete. So after the installation is complete, I'm going to, you can see that I have launch post installation tasks, but if I close this window, you'll see that I have a yellow exclamation mark where it says that I need to configure my WSUS. So I'm going to launch this window and wait for the window to pop up. Let's try again. Oh, it's thinking about it. So I'm just waiting for the post-deployment configuration wizard to pop up so we can basically configure our WSUS server. So in the end, what it did is just it finished the post-deployment configuration. No pop-ups were I did not receive any pop-ups, so you can safely assume that pretty much there are a few post configuration that needs to run on themselves. And please note that if you received a restart request, now is the time to restart the WSUS server. So in general, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the Windows Server Update Services console and wait for the console to appear, and there is the wizard that I was talking about. So before you start with the actual wizard, there are a few questions, and Microsoft are giving you the questions right on the front page. You need to answer them, and you need to be sure that everything is configured, and so that the deployment of your WSUS server can be successful in the end. And if you check the questions, make notes of them, and be sure that you configure all of them before you finally go ahead and say that your WSUS server is ready for production. So after looking through the questions, I'm going to click next, and the next window will prompt me for me to participate in the Microsoft Update Improvement Program. Basically, this is going to send anonymous information to Microsoft. I don't want to participate at this time, so I'm going to click remove the tick box and click next. So this window is really important one, and I want to give you a brief overview of what are the options and what do you need, so you can understand what do you need in your environment. So the first option is to synchronize from Microsoft Update, and this is self-explanatory. Basically, your WSUS server will be an upstream server, and it will download all of its updates from the Microsoft Update repository. For this purpose, the only thing you need to look into is opening the proper ports on your firewalls. So, for example, if you have a strict restriction on your firewall rules, you need to look into, and this is one of the first questions that you need to answer, if you remember. So this is a thing that you need to consider to open the proper ports, depending on your scenario, of course. The second option, the second radio button, is synchronize from another Windows Server Update Services server. And basically what this says is this server, this WSUS server, will connect to another WSUS server in your environment, and it will become a downstream server. So all of the updates will be downloaded on the upstream server from Microsoft Update, and then this server will use the upstream server to download the updates from it. So for example, if you have a central server that has internet connectivity, you can download all the updates in there, and you can configure the second server to download all the updates internally from your first centralized server. And you can see that the port number is 8530, so you need to consider this again with firewalls. If you have any firewalls, they need to be open. Of course, you can use SSL to encrypt the information between the servers so it can be more secure. This needs to be again looked into from the perspective of firewall rules that needs to be open between the servers. And the last option is, this is a replica server of an upstream server. So what does the replica mean is that this WSUS server, you will not be able to control any updates on it. Basically, it will look into the server, your main centralized WSUS server, for updates, and all of the updates that are approved on it will be automatically approved here in as well. If you don't select this option and you select to have this server as downstream, you will again have the ability to approve, decline updates. So it can, although it's going to look for updates from the main server, you have the granularity to manage the updates yourself. Using the replica, everything will be centralized from a central location, a central WSUS server. So for this video, I'm going to synchronize from Microsoft Updates and click Next. So the next option is to use a proxy server. So depending on your environment, you can use this one. You can configure all the settings for your proxy, any credentials and so on. I don't have a proxy, so I'm going to leave the defaults and click Next. And the next window is to download the update information from Microsoft Updates. So basically you will need a connectivity, internet connectivity, so it can connect and start pulling information from Microsoft Updates. So although I don't have internet connectivity at the moment, I'm going to try and see what is going to be the error message if you if you don't have the proper connectivity or the proper ports open on your firewall. You're most probably going to see the same error. So I'm waiting for the wizard to prompt me that it's not able to detect a WSUS server on the internet. And you can see that I received an error message saying that an HTTP error occurred. So if I click on the details, they are a bit confusing, but it's saying that it's not able to synchronize. So what I will do is I will pause this video and enable my internet connectivity just for a moment so we can synchronize the WSUS server. So after allowing my server internet access, I'm going to once again try and start connecting to my Microsoft Update services, and let's see if this time around the connection will be successful. Again, I'm going to pause. I don't know how long it will take, so I'm going to continue when I have a solution. So after the wizard complete downloading the settings from the Microsoft Update server, it took around half an hour, let's say, so it's not that fast. I'm going to click Next because I have the option to click Next now. And here is an important step that you need to configure. I don't recommend downloading updates in all languages because this will clog up your WSUS server. So what I do recommend is only download the updates that you need for the specific language that you are in. So I'm going to use English, but in your case you may choose from different languages in here. And I'm going to click Next. And the next window will allow us to choose the products that I want to download updates for. And this is an important thing. Again, I don't recommend selecting all of the products because after all, you need to download only updates that are important to you and your environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to browse through all of the products that are available. and you can see that there are a lot of products in the list. So let's do Windows for now. I have a lot of Windows operating systems, both desktops and server ones. So instead of downloading everything, I want to, let's say, because my client machine that I want to download the updates and see if it is working is Windows 10. So I'm going to select only Windows 10 updates. You can see that I even have the creators update and later servicing drivers and updates. So even the latest Windows 10 creators updates is included, which is the thing I need. So I'm going to select everything for Windows 10 only. And language packs, if you need language packs, you can see there are a lot of things. And we can go down even to Windows Server 2000. So if you have a Windows Server 2000 in your environment, which you need to be ashamed of, it's 2017 for God's sake. So you can select the updates from here. This is a joke only. So after choosing the products, I don't need anything for now. Let me just verify that there are no others. And again, you need to be careful with this because a lot of updates will be downloaded. The next step is classifications, and you can see you have the option to select critical updates or any security updates, feature packs, drivers. So you can basically update rollups as well, service packs. So again, you need to be careful with this one. You need to download only select only the classifications that you need for your environment to be downloaded. Because from my experience, WSUS servers, if you select a lot of things to be downloaded, WSUS servers can clog up real easy, and they can take a lot of space which is not needed, and cleaning the WSUS servers can even take reinstalling the actual WSUS on the server. So it's better to configure things properly than to configure them to download everything and then to reconfigure and reconfigure. It's basically a magic circle that you can become a part in. So I'm going to leave the default and click next. The next window is synchronize manually or synchronize the synchronization of the downloading the updates. So this server will contact Microsoft Update to download the updates, and you can select if you want manually or automatically. What you can do is you can configure the settings to run during the night, so that during the night when there is your users are not working, this server will pull up updates and it will utilize the network bandwidth during the night, which is better because during the day in production hours it can cause some significant problems to the user. So I suggest doing automatic synchronization during the night. You can configure you can even see that it's going to check for updates even 24 times. So it can check for updates on every hour. So I'm going to configure, let's say, at 3 a.m. So at 3 a.m. during the night, my server will contact Microsoft, will download the latest updates, and I only want to do this one time per day. So leave this like this. And the last window is a finished window where you can begin the initial synchronization. And the initial synchronization, you can see, can take some time. So it depends on what you actually select in the classification, in the products, in the languages. So I'm going to select this button because I want my server to download some updates and then push the updates to the client. And I'm going to click finish, and you can see the WSUS console will automatically pop up. And now if I expand the left tile, you will see that I have different options, and in here you will see the updates, all updates, critical, security. You will see computers, and I'm going to talk more about computers. We're going to add my client machine to this group. Basically, this is an update group, and we're going to create a new one so I can show you how this is done. The downstream servers, I don't have any downstream servers, but if you remember, they are going to be populated in here if there are any servers that are pulling updates from this one. I don't have such at the moment. So synchronizations, if I open the synchronizations, it should show that my server is currently trying to, or you can see that it's running a synchronization. You can see the progress. Let me just expand that a bit so we can see better. And you can see any successful synchronizations, any failed ones, and details. If you remember, my server was not connected to the internet, so this will appear here. The reports are very granular, and it can show any computers that are failing to install updates, or servers, of course, or what is the total summary of updates being installed. So we're going to check that as well in the end. And the option field is you can change any settings on the WSUS servers after the actual deployment. So you can check the upgrade files and languages. So if you remember, we did select only English in here, but you can check it after that. You can change the schedule, the automatic approvals. You can configure any computers in groups if you want. And the server cleanup wizard is a tool that can help you to clean your WSUS server when there are more when there are a lot of updates and a lot of disk space is being used. So I recommend doing this from time to time, so you can clean old updates and you can leave the latest on the server. So now that my server is synchronizing, it's going to take some time. You can see the progress at 27%. It's going to take some time. So during that time, so we can fill that gap, I'm going to switch to my domain controller, and we are going to configure my group policy settings so that the group policy can be pushed to the client machines, so they will know that this WSUS server will provide them updates. So let's switch to the DC and configure the group policy.